Hi, my name is Scotch Witchman, and I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much to the Society for Scientific Exploration for hosting this conference and for inviting me to speak. Today I'll be talking about psychic hacking, a term that means using psychic abilities to gain access to information contained in supposedly secure computers, even from thousands of miles away. I'm not just talking about hacking your emails or browsing histories or medical records, but also national secrets, lists of people in witness protection, compartmentalized black ops details, weapons designs, military plans, and even nuclear codes. If physical barriers pose no obstacle to a psychic, then your barbed wire, concrete bunker, alarm system, password, two-factor authentication, and your strongest firewall might be useless if a psychic can pass right through your walls and into your computer. The reason I've started thinking about psychic hacking at all is that I've worked in cybersecurity for over 30 years, helping companies of all sizes defend against cyber criminals. But as much as I'm a security nerd, I'm also a student of the paranormal. I saw my first of many ghosts when I was 6, I started studying ancient magical practices, I've undergone hands-on training in shamanism and exorcism, and because that wasn't enough, I went back to school for parapsychology. So given these interests, you can imagine how excited I was when I discovered that 13 million pages of previously classified documents had been made available on the CIA's online archive, including many related to the federal government's remote viewing research during the 70s and 80s. I spent months poring over thousands of documents, and while I was blown away by what psychics could do under lab conditions, I didn't find what I really wanted, which was an account of a psychic hacking a computer. So for my dissertation, I set out to find out if psychic hacking of computers was possible, and spoiler, it is. We don't have time to review remote viewing's deep history today, which you can pick up from any number of books, but a few points will be helpful for context. First, remote viewing is essentially clairvoyance that follows a specialized protocol where a psychic uses their power to describe a target at a distant location. The US government's classified remote viewing research program, known as Stargate, among other names, was funded for over 20 years by a variety of agencies with the goal of using clairvoyance for intelligence purposes in partnership with the Stanford Research Institute. The program conducted over 25,000 experiments with results that demonstrated, statistically speaking, that remote viewing is indeed a real phenomenon. In early experiments, a scientist acting as a beacon would go to a remote location and a remote viewer would try to describe what was located there. Psychics could describe details that were visible to the scientist, but also details that were not readily visible, suggesting that remote viewing is not the same as telepathy. Researchers also discovered that remote viewing worked over any distance and through any medium, and also that some targets were harder than others. In this example from an experiment in 1976, a pedestrian overpass was the target, and from 1 kilometer away, the remote viewer sensed a kind of repeating geometry, as you can see in the drawing, that suggests going through something angular, which the psychic described as like a trough in the air. Although the government's program ran for years, it did not explore psychic hacking for a couple of reasons. Computers weren't yet the widespread bearers of secrets like they are today, so they weren't juicy targets. And also, computers were relatively rare and expensive and considered to be serious scientific tools, so targeting one would have been as exciting as targeting a protractor. That said, computers were used incidentally in some experiments to facilitate testing of psychics. A psychic might try to guess which target on a computer screen had been selected, for example, where the target was chosen randomly by a random generator inside of the computer. If the random number was chosen before the psychic made their guess, this was the closest example I saw to psychic hacking. The metaphor isn't perfect, however, because here the psychic isn't targeting the secret random number, they're targeting whatever target the number points to, which is different than going after the crown jewels themselves. Now on to the psychic hacking experiment, which took place over a 2-week period starting October 23, 2022, and it was hosted online at psychicexperiment.org. I opened the experiment to the general public because I wanted as much data as possible for statistical analysis, and also past research has shown that any random person may possess hidden psychic talent. So like many past researchers, my strategy was to vet as many participants as possible in a first judging phase, and then focus deep analysis on participants who showed psychic promise in a second judging phase. To promote the website, I ran an ad campaign on Facebook, which attracted a global audience. Upon arriving, visitors would take an intake survey to measure belief in psychic powers, how long each person believed they'd been psychic, and which kinds of activities helped them be more effective psychically. Participants were then presented with 3 randomly selected targets, one at a time, which included a picture, an ATM PIN number, and a secret passphrase, which were all stored on a laptop computer at an undisclosed location in Los Angeles. Accompanying each target were remote viewing instructions borrowed from the Stargate program itself, and also what appeared to be a live video feed of the actual laptop in Los Angeles. Participants were told that their targets were all displayed on the laptop screen, but the laptop screen was angled downward, so while psychics could see the laptop, they couldn't see the targets. Also, on the wall above the laptop was a picture of an animal, either a tiger or a parrot, which served as an additional beacon to help the remote viewers zero in. After finishing with a target, psychics were asked to enter freeform text about their general impressions, a guess as to what the target was, and optionally submit any drawings they made. All of this is what was presented to participants, but not all was as it seemed. First, besides the picture, ATM PIN, and passphrase targets, the laptop also had a 4th, secret, undisclosed target, which was a silent video clip playing on the screen alongside the other targets, looping repeatedly. The purpose of this control was to determine if a psychic could detect its presence in the same way that a real hacker snoops around after breaking into a system in order to discover what's there. Secondly, while psychics believed that there was just one laptop, in fact, there were 2. I didn't want to rely on just one in case it failed in the middle of the experiment. So, when a visitor would arrive at the experiment website, it would automatically, randomly choose either laptop 1 or 2, and then show them the apparent live feed of just that laptop. Each laptop had its own unique set of randomly selected targets, and also each laptop had its own unique beacon on the wall above it. Laptop 1 had a picture of a tiger, and laptop 2 had a parrot. The hypothesis was that showing a live feed of the laptop and its beacon would help inspire confidence, especially in psychics who were brand new. As in, there's the laptop right in front of me, I can see it right there, all I need to do is connect with it mentally. And finally, the apparent video feed of the laptop was actually staged. In truth, both laptops were actually displaying their respective targets on their screens. This was important because it meant that the targets were not only in disk and in memory, but also in the computer's display electronics, which meant more surface area for the psychics to tap into. But displaying the targets nakedly on the computer screens posed a problem, since why couldn't a talented remote viewer simply project themselves into the lab at just the right angle so they could see whatever was on the screen? That wouldn't be psychic hacking, it would be psychic shoulder surfing. To solve this, both laptop screens were in reality dimmed to black and covered with cardboard shields and tape so no light could escape. So while the targets were being displayed, the fact they weren't visible to the naked eye meant that remote viewers would have to go into the machines in order to fetch information. Using the shields also helped ensure that the experiment remained double-blind. Getting into some technical details next, the website was hosted in Google's cloud environment. The 2 target laptops were both stored in a lab closet, protected 24/7 by video camera. The laptops were hardened against hacking and were standalone, meaning networking abilities were disabled entirely. Each laptop received its own unique set of randomly chosen targets nightly. All of the potential targets waiting for deployment were encrypted and stored on a secure standalone control laptop that was locked in a safe when not in use. And when it was time to deploy the next targets, automated scripts would randomly pick the targets and copy them to a USB stick, which I'd then walk to the target laptops where other scripts would deploy them and display them on the laptop screens, which of course I couldn't see because they were blacked out. Moving on to targets next, picture targets were randomly chosen from a pool of 75 images sourced from books, magazines, and internet archives. Images were selected with strong visual, emotional, action, or color content, since these have been found to be strong attractors in psychic experiments. The ATM pins were randomly generated just before deployment and could consist of any 4-digit number. The passphrases were also randomly generated and consisted of 4 words taken from word lists. Video targets were chosen from 10 possible video clips taken from TV shows and films. All of the videos were silent, shortened to about 10 seconds, and configured to loop continuously. Randomness for picking the targets combined 2 physical sources of randomness, including Geiger counter data collected over a 5-day period that was then randomly shuffled, and secondly, RDC'd, a feature in some Intel chips that generates random numbers based on thermal noise. These were combined to pick the next target from a list of randomly shuffled targets. Let's talk about judging next. The first judging phase was conducted with the help of 6 volunteer judges. Each submission was judged by 3 randomly chosen judges who had no idea which psychic submitted which submission. Rank order scoring was used, which is where a judge is shown a submission along with 5 possible targets in randomized order. One of those 5 is the actual target, and the remaining 4 are all decoys that are very convincing. The judge then picks which of the 5 possible targets best matches the submission as first place, then chooses second place, and so on. Now, video rounds were a special case. Since psychics didn't know that a video was present as a target, they didn't submit any guesses for it. However, my theory was that in the course of trying to guess a picture target, it was very possible that a psychic might inadvertently pick up on information from a video target instead, since the video was also pictorial in nature. So we treated the video rounds just like picture rounds, swapping in a still from one of the video targets as one of the 5 possible targets for a judge to choose from. Submissions receiving 2 or more first-place matches were considered potentially psychic and proceeded to the second judging phase. If all 3 judges correctly matched a submission against the target in first place, this was considered to be a direct hit. Next, in phase 2 of judging, a volunteer referee painstakingly compared each submission against its target and gave points for each matching detail. 1 point was given for a strong match, and half a point was given for a match that was abstract, symbolic, or analogous. Regarding statistics, p-values were obtained from lookup tables that combined sum of ranks and direct hits, with any p-value less than 0.05 being an indicator that we should reject the null hypothesis. For ATM pin rounds, p-values were obtained through direct calculation of how closely a guess matched its numeric target. Z-scores and effect sizes were calculated also, with a medium effect being one that's visible to a careful observer, and a large effect being one that's evident to any observer. Now let's talk about the experiment results, starting with the participants. Over the 2-week period, 146 people participated from 10 countries. 49% were women, and 74% were between 35 and 64 years old based on demographics reported by Facebook. Based on the survey, 42% believed they were psychic, with 57% claiming to be psychic since childhood. Practices helpful in being psychic included quiet, relaxation, setting intention, meditation, and shutting eyes. Also helpful were crystals, rhythmic noises, incense, and some kind of ritual. Since each of the 4 submissions submitted by all 146 participants were judged by 3 judges, 1,752 rounds were judged. 92 submissions made it to the second round of judging after being judged as potential psychic hits, which is saying something because the quality of the decoys was quite high. When it came to picking which of the 5 targets was the real one, the 6 judges were correct only 18% of the time, which is worse than random guessing. Looking at the picture results now, 12 submissions scored as psychic hits, which was statistically significant as calculated using the lookup tables. The effect size was large, meaning it'd be obvious to any observer, and seeing these results was about on par with flipping a coin repeatedly and seeing 11 heads in a row. The pictures with the highest number of detailed matches were images with strong geometric patterns, nature scenes, and scenes of humans in peril. Many submissions' details were dead on. For example, participant number 43 had this cathedral dome as the target. The psychic wrote that they sensed the colors of lilac and blue, green, and beige, with a feeling of sandstone and open air, in a circular shape with vertical lines or protrusions around it. And the drawing submitted resembled the cathedral dome's lines, circular shapes, arcs, and repeating motifs. In another example, participant number 12 described in her writing a forest target as being quiet, with sunlight falling on a forest path, and the path in the subject's drawing curves left like the target's. Now, while some submissions were spot on, others were more abstract and symbolic. Carl Jung wrote that the unconscious mind can't be accessed directly, but instead speaks in a symbolic language all its own, so it follows that some submissions might seem surreal. For example, participant number 65 described a dense cluster of gray street lamps as trunks of elephants or belts hanging on a hook. Psychic number 86 described a river gauge with its markings as a tool for rhythm on the piano. For a target picture of gun-toting soldiers wearing helmets in a wartime trench, 2 subjects zeroed in on the helmet and gun shapes. Psychic number 69 mentioned helmets outright and described cherries joined by their stems, while psychic number 64 similarly described seeing an oval shape with 2 legs. Moving now to the results of the video targets. First, our hypothesis was correct. Psychics were able to describe details of the video clips even though they didn't know the video clips were even present, which is analogous to how a hacker who gains access to an unfamiliar system might snoop around to discover what's there. 10 video submissions were psychic hits, which was statistically significant and a large effect. As with pictures, certain kinds of content attracted more hits, especially if it included geometric details, humans in peril, and nature scenes. The target for the highest scoring submission by psychic number 141 was a short video clip featuring a woman's face. Wearing a wig, clownish white makeup, and red lipstick, the woman plunges her face into a glass jar of witchy green liquid, and then she pulls out a rubber frog with her teeth. Psychic 141's submitted drawing identified 6 features, including an arched brow, a defined cleft below the nose, a clown mask appearance with downturned mouth, a chattering teeth toy, which typically has red lips and white teeth, a crocodile, which is an aquatic animal just like a frog is, and finally the presence of water. Psychic 141 also wrote that she sensed a sad clown face with the chattering wind-up toy teeth, which typically have white teeth and red lips, just like the woman in the video. The fact that the psychic picked up on the teeth was notable because in the original full-length video, the woman pulls the frog out of the jar and then parts her lips, showing her teeth, but that teeth moment was not included in the short video clip used in the experiment. It was edited out. And that original footage was not stored on any of the computers used in the experiment. So this raised the question, can a psychic pick up on details that are tangentially related to what's present, even if those details are located somewhere else? And the answer appears to be yes. Participant number 38, for example, who had the same video target of the woman with the frog, received an impression of bubble, bubble, toil and trouble, which sounds like a match for double, double, toil and trouble, cauldron, bubble, toe of frog from Shakespeare's Macbeth. The Macbeth reference contains a direct mention of frog, as well as of bubbling, and there is a moment in the original footage where the woman puts her lips into the green liquid glass jar and blows bubbles, although this footage never appeared in the clip used in the experiment. So again, we have a psychic following a tangent. We saw the same situation for participant number 144, whose video target was the suspenseful scene from the movie The Shining, where Jack Nicholson's character breaks through a hotel bathroom door with an axe. Again, without even knowing a video was present, the psychic described sensing a heartbeat and blood. And indeed, The Shining employs a heartbeat sound effect at various points in the film to suggest that the hotel itself is alive, and there is a scene where a hotel hallway fills with blood. But what's interesting is that neither the heartbeat effect nor the blood scene were present in the footage used in the experiment short video clip. Participant number 137 also had The Shining as their video target. In the film's story, a family of 3 moves into an empty and isolated hotel for the winter in the snowy Colorado mountains. The father hopes to get some writing done while his wife is excited to be tagging along for a wintry vacation. None of these details were included in the experiment's short video clip, yet Psychic 137 correctly sensed that a target involved someone's mother who was on vacation somewhere in a mountain location. So again, we have a psychic following a tangent, which supports past experiments in the 1970s where a psychic could zero in on a location where a volunteer was standing, but then go even further to describe features that were hidden from view there. Moving now to ATM pin results. 32 participants matched 2 or more digits against their 4-digit pin targets, but only 3 results were significant. 1 submission matched 3 digits in exact order, 9 submissions matched 3 digits in any order, 19 submissions guessed 2 digits in any order. While the first result of matching 3 digits in exact order would be like witnessing coin flips of 7 heads in a row, it was a rare event, so we ruled it insufficient to reject the null hypothesis. What was more interesting in the ATM pin results was the opportunity for collusion. That is, if psychics assigned the same pin number had colluded, only 2 psychics would have been needed to obtain all pin digits for the pins 6491, 9547, 4211, and 7938. For each of these pins, 2 participants managed to correctly guess all of the digits between them, which, if pooled, would have reduced the brute force guessing necessary to arrive at the exact pin numbers. We saw a similar opportunity for collusion during the picture rounds. One of the targets was a bicyclist looking to the left, about to fall into a body of water. Participant number 90 described sensing a water, a fall, and a crash. Participant number 83 sensed a human head that was outside and looking to the left, while psychic number 85 also detected water and drew what looked like a possible bike wheel and bicyclist's legs. The highest number of details achieved by any single psychic here was 3, but if we combine the results from all 3 psychics together, we arrive at 7 total details identified. The implication being that combining psychics to tackle hacking problems may yield results faster. Moving finally now to the passphrase results, which were the least successful of all the targets. Past research shows that numbers and letters are difficult targets because they're not novel. We already have all the letters and numbers in our heads, so it's easy for psychics to second guess their impressions. 5 of the 19 passphrase results were scored as hits by judges, but the number of matching details was too small to be significant. What was interesting, however, is that while focusing on the passphrase target, some psychics inadvertently picked up on the details of other targets that happened to be on the computer screen at the time. Psychic number 13, for example, sensed a pyramid, and while this did not match the passphrase target that they were going for, it perfectly matched the picture target present at the time, which happened to be of an Egyptian pyramid. Similarly, psychic number 6's impressions of spirals, swirling, and spinning did not match the passphrase target, but did match the video target playing at the time, which was a clip of Julie Andrews spinning on green hills in the film The Sound of Music. In addition to analyzing targets, we also looked at the survey results to see how belief in psychic ability correlated with actual psychic performance. In response to the question, do you have psychic abilities? Subjects can answer yes, maybe, or no. Submissions associated with the survey answer of yes matched a total of 93 details, followed by maybe with 70.5 matches, and then no with 7.5 matches. In other words, submissions whose subjects believe they did or could have psychic powers by answering yes or maybe had 21.8 times more detailed matches than submissions whose subjects answered no. The takeaway is, if you want to be more psychic, just believe that you're psychic. Now that we've seen that psychics do appear able to describe information held in computers that are located thousands of miles away, the most obvious question is cybersecurity broken? And the answer depends greatly on how much secrecy you need. For example, if you need total deniability that certain information exists, you might be in trouble because the experiment shows that psychics can describe details and target data, but even more impressively, they can rummage around to uncover data they didn't even know exists, as we saw with the remote viewers able to describe videos they didn't know were even legitimate targets. So deniability is no longer a sure thing. Secondly, if you need information and compartmentalization, you might be in trouble because psychics can gather information not only about their targets, but also about adjacent and inadvertent targets, as we saw with people aiming for one target but then describing a different target. Psychics can also apparently follow tangents to other information not physically present, as we saw in the example of The Shining. So, moving part of your data from a computer to a filing cabinet doesn't necessarily protect it from a psychic who can follow that tangential line connecting those two locations. Whether cybersecurity is broken also depends on your defenses, since based on the experiment results, we know psychics are not stopped by increasing the distance to a target, physical shielding, network air gaps, keeping information related to computer data in a different location, data access permissions, system monitoring, and obfuscation, since psychics seem able to reassemble information that's encoded, fragmented, and or dispersed throughout a computer. The good news is that there's hope against psychic hacking. Sort of. First, psychics' direct hits were rare. In the picture rounds, for example, out of 146 submissions, only 8% were considered to be direct hits. Of course, even a direct hit might be devastating if you're trying to protect national secrets. Next, information is likely to be described in abstractions and symbols rather than directly by a psychic. If you're hiding a UFO, it's unlikely a psychic will describe all of it precisely, although as brain-computer interfaces get better, who's to say that an AI engine won't peer into a psychic's brain and then print out a photograph of the UFO that the psychic is seeing remotely. Third, the experiment results support past research that text and numbers are difficult targets, so your alphanumeric passwords are probably safe. Maybe. Because the results also suggest that collusion among psychics may increase speed and accuracy, so your password might not be safe after all. In short, based on the results, I would be wary of anyone claiming that a system is 100% secure against snooping. Moving now to thoughts on future research. First, where are psychics pulling computer data from? Is it memory, CPU, storage? Or maybe psychics are reading the radiation emanating from computer displays or memory chips, which has been shown to be possible with the right equipment. Collusion is another area. We saw how psychics working together could possibly reduce the amount of brute force guessing needed to arrive at a target pin number. How reliable is this? How many colluders do we need to get an actual correct answer on the first try? And what about brain-computer interfaces? If a psychic can gain access to the computer connected to Elon Musk's Neuralink chip, they might be able to snoop. And if snooping affects neurons, could a hacker manipulate thoughts or dreams, implant ideas, or even alter or delete someone's memories? Perhaps defenses against psychic hacking should be another potential research area. For example, encryption might make it harder for a psychic to peer into data, forcing them to glimpse data only when it's in its decrypted state. Quantum computing is another possible defense, since computers that rely on superposition instead of binary values might inhibit a psychic's ability to lock on, and perhaps even the act of observing itself might corrupt the data, a la Heisenberg. And what about using psychics as defenders? Could a good psychic stop a bad psychic hacker from executing an attack? There is some research suggesting that some people can sense when others are staring at them, so perhaps psychics can sense and jam bad psychics at work. Perhaps psychics could even be used to help battle weaponized drones or robots. If a psychic can remotely access the computer controlling an automated weapon systems and its intentions, or even sense outcomes precognitively by just a few seconds, maybe that would be enough time for lasers to lock on and take out a robot. And that concludes my talk on psychic hacking, which I hope provided convincing evidence that talented remote viewers may be able to bypass traditional cybersecurity defenses. And also, like a chapter right out of the Matrix, perhaps one day we'll rely on psychics to help us anticipate or even foil what evil AI robots are plotting. If you'd like to connect or discuss, you can reach out to me on social media, including LinkedIn and Instagram. And thank you so much for tuning in.